bright beginnings. Ethan practically bounced as he strode through the automatic doors of Sunny Meadows Hospital. The scent of disinfectant and vaguely floral air freshener hit him like a wave, a bracing cocktail that spoke of healing and, well, slightly artificial attempts to mask the inherent realities of a hospital. He adjusted his perfectly knotted tie and straightened his lab coat, the crisp white fabric still bearing the sharp creases of its packaging. Today was the day. His day. The lobby was a hive of activity. Volunteers in bright pink vests directed lost-looking visitors, nurses hurried past with clipboards, and the rhythmic beeping of a nearby heart monitor provided a constant, almost percussive, background hum. Ethan navigated the chaos with practiced ease, a confident smile plastered on his face. He knew his way around a hospital, he'd practically lived in one during his residency. But this felt different. This was his hospital now. His launching pad. Dr. Bright. A voice, slightly breathless, pulled him from his self-congratulatory reverie. A young woman with kind eyes and a frazzled bun approached, clutching a stack of files that threatened to topple. "I'm Sarah, Dr. Miller's administrative assistant. He's expecting you. Right this way." He followed her through a maze of corridors, each turn revealing a new vista of medical activity. A patient being wheeled to radiology, a group of doctors huddled around a computer screen, a family anxiously awaiting news in the waiting room. The sheer scale of it all was both exhilarating and slightly intimidating. Sarah led him to a door marked Dr. Miller, Chief of Internal Medicine. She knocked softly and then ushered him inside. Dr. Miller was a man of medium height with a warm smile. He gestured to a chair. "Ethan, welcome. Glad to finally have you on board. I know you'll be a great addition to the team." Ethan took the seat, trying to project an air of calm confidence. "Thank you, Dr. Miller. I'm eager to get started." Inside, his mind was racing. He imagined himself diagnosing rare diseases, publishing groundbreaking research, earning the respect of his colleagues and the gratitude of his patients. He would be the Dr. Bright, the one they all talked about. The one whose name was synonymous with innovation and excellence. Dr. Miller spent the next hour outlining the hospital's protocols, introducing Ethan to the other doctors on staff, and explaining his initial responsibilities. It was a whirlwind of information, names, and faces. Ethan tried to absorb it all, nodding attentively and asking insightful questions. He wanted to prove that he was sharp, engaged, and ready to tackle any challenge. As the day progressed, Ethan found himself increasingly drawn to the emergency room. The controlled chaos appealed to him. The adrenaline, the urgency, the opportunity to make a real difference in people's lives. He knew he had to prove himself, and the ER seemed like the perfect stage. He volunteered to take on extra shifts, eager to demonstrate his skills. He was quick to offer diagnoses, sometimes a little too quick, driven by an internal pressure to appear knowledgeable. He knew he was good. He just needed everyone else to see it too. The weight of his ambition felt both thrilling and exhausting. He pushed down a flicker of doubt, a tiny voice whispering that perhaps he should slow down, listen more, and trust the experience of those around him. But he couldn't afford to listen to that voice. Not now. Not when his bright beginning was just getting underway. A vague pain. Silas Abernathy shuffled through the automatic doors of St. Jude's, the faint scent of antiseptic stinging his nostrils. He winced, not from the smell, but the dull ache that had settled in his chest like a stubborn houseguest. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the bustling reception area. A young woman with bright pink hair barely glanced up from her computer as he approached. "Name and date of birth," she asked, her voice flat. "Silas Abernathy." "July 14, 1948, he replied, his voice raspy. She tapped away at the keyboard. "Reason for visit?" "Just a vague pain. Here," he gestured to his chest, a gentle pat over his sternum. "Insurance card." He fumbled in his worn leather wallet, his fingers stiff. After what felt like an eternity, he produced the card. She scanned it, her expression unchanging. "Have a seat. Doctor will see you shortly." Dr. Ethan Bright strode into the examination room, a whirlwind of controlled energy. He scanned the chart, a practiced furrow in his brow. Abernathy. 75. Chest pain. Likely just indigestion, he thought dismissively. Still, protocol was protocol. He entered the room, his smile practiced. Mr. Abernathy? I'm Dr. Bright. He extended a hand, his grip firm, perhaps a little too enthusiastic. Silas shook his hand, his own grip surprisingly strong. Thank you for seeing me, Doctor. So, chest pain, I see. Can you describe it? Bright perched on the edge of the examination table, his posture radiating efficiency. Silas hesitated, searching for the right words. It's not sharp, not really. More of a pressing feeling. Like a weight. He unconsciously rubbed his chest again. Comes and goes. Started a few days ago. Thought it was just indigestion, but it hasn't gone away. Bright tapped his pen against the chart. Anything else? Shortness of breath? Nausea? Sweating? Silas shook his head. No, nothing like that. Just tired, maybe. More than usual. Bright pulled out his stethoscope. All right, let's have a listen. He pressed the cold metal against Silas's chest, listening intently, but his mind was already racing. He had a presentation to prepare for the chief of cardiology tomorrow, a chance to showcase his research on a new treatment for atrial fibrillation. This Abernathy case was just a distraction. Deep breath, he instructed, moving the stethoscope to Silas's back. Again. He straightened up, his expression neutral. Everything sounds clear. Blood pressure's a little elevated, but nothing alarming. Probably just anxiety from being here. Anxiety? Silas looked surprised. I'm not really anxious, Doctor. Just concerned. Bright waved a dismissive hand. Of course, of course. Always best to be cautious. But I suspect it's nothing serious. Probably musculoskeletal pain. Happens all the time. He scribbled something on the chart. I'm going to order a standard EKG, just to be on the safe side. But I wouldn't worry too much. Silas watched him, his gaze steady and knowing. An EKG? Is that really necessary if you think it's just muscle pain? Bright paused, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. He prided himself on his diagnostic skills, and this old man was questioning him. It's standard procedure, Mr. Abernathy. Just a precaution. He forced a smile. We'll get you all checked out and on your way in no time. He turned to leave. Nurse will be in shortly to hook you up. As the door closed behind Dr. Bright, Silas Abernathy sat quietly on the examination table. The vague pain in his chest hadn't lessened, and a new, sharper feeling had begun to take root, a feeling of being unheard. Dismissed concerns. Dr. Bright barely made eye contact. He scanned Silas's chart, a pre-printed form mostly filled in by the intake nurse. Chest pain, Mr. Abernathy. How long has this been going on? Silas shifted on the examination table, the thin paper crinkling beneath him. Off and on for a few weeks now, Doctor. Nothing too bad. Just a little tightness. Bright pressed a cold stethoscope to Silas's chest, moving it with brisk efficiency. He listened for perhaps 10 seconds, then pulled it away. Take a deep breath. And again. He barely waited for Silas to comply before moving on to palpating Silas's abdomen, a quick, perfunctory poke that made Silas flinch slightly. Any tenderness there? Bright asked, already scribbling on the chart without looking up. No, sir, Silas replied, adjusting his worn cardigan. Just for the chest, mostly. Especially when I'm walking uphill. Bright straightened, finally meeting Silas's gaze. Well, Mr. Abernathy, at your age, these things are common. Probably just a bit of indigestion, maybe some muscle strain. Are you getting enough exercise? Silas chuckled softly. I walk everywhere, doctor. Don't own a car. Bright tapped his pen against the chart. All right. I'm going to prescribe you some antacids. Take them as needed. And try to take it easy. Don't push yourself too hard. He tore off a prescription slip and handed it to Silas. That's all, Mr. Abernathy. The nurse will see you out. Silas took the slip, his fingers brushing Bright's briefly. He noticed the doctor's youthful hands, the skin smooth and unlined, a stark contrast to his own gnarled ones. Thank you, doctor. Bright was already halfway to the door. Next, he called out, without looking back. Silas stepped out of the examination room, a wave of disappointment washing over him. He'd hoped for more, perhaps a thorough examination, maybe even a test or two. He understood that doctors were busy, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he hadn't been truly heard. He collected his coat from the hook and shuffled toward the reception desk. The fluorescent lights of the clinic seemed harsher than usual, casting long shadows that danced around his feet. He felt a strange hollowness in his chest, a sense of unease that went beyond the physical discomfort. It was the feeling of being dismissed, of being seen as just another old man with aches and pains. He handed the prescription to the receptionist, a young woman with bright pink lipstick and an equally bright smile. Here you go, Mr. Abernathy. Just a moment while I process this. As he waited, Silas glanced back at the closed door of examination room 3. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, that the tightness in his chest was more than just indigestion or muscle strain. But what did he know? He wasn't a doctor. He was just an old man, and old men worried. 7 minutes. Mr. Silas Abernathy moved with the unhurried pace of a man accustomed to patience. Each step was deliberate, a quiet negotiation between his aging body and the polished tile floor of the hospital lobby. The scent of antiseptic, so sharp upstairs, was diluted here by the faint aroma of day-old coffee and the metallic tang of the revolving doors. He paused, watching the sunlight slice through the glass, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. He felt lighter than he had in days. Dr. Albright's dismissal still stung, but the memory was already receding, like a ship disappearing over the horizon. He'd find someone who would listen. Someone who would care. He reached the information desk, its surface gleaming under the fluorescent lights. A young woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Brenda was meticulously sorting pamphlets. Excuse me, he began, his voice a low rumble. Could you direct me to the nearest bus stop? Brenda looked up, a flicker of practiced politeness crossing her face. She pointed towards the main entrance. Just outside, sir. To your left. Thank you kindly, Mr. Silas replied, offering a small, genuine smile. He turned, his hand instinctively reaching for the worn leather strap of his satchel. He took another step. Whee-oh! 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 The sound ripped through the lobby, a high-pitched, grating shriek that clawed at the eardrums. It wasn't a fire alarm. It was something harsher, more urgent. An emergency alert. Mr. Silas froze, his hand still hovering over his bag. The air crackled with a sudden, palpable tension. Conversation ceased mid-sentence. The gentle hum of the building seemed to hold its breath. Brenda's practiced politeness vanished, replaced by a stark, wide-eyed fear. She fumbled for the phone, her fingers trembling. Then, chaos. From every corner of the lobby, doors burst open. Nurses in scrubs, their faces etched with grim determination, sprinted towards the main entrance. Doctors, still adjusting their white coats, followed close behind, their expressions a mixture of concern and adrenaline. The calm, sterile atmosphere shattered, replaced by a frantic energy. Lobby emergency. All available personnel to the lobby, a voice boomed over the intercom, its tone clipped and urgent. Code red in the lobby. Mr. Silas, caught in the sudden surge of bodies, stumbled back, his hand finally gripping the satchel strap for support. He watched, bewildered, as the hospital staff converged on the entrance, a swarm of white and blue uniforms moving with a single, terrifying purpose. He felt a sharp, unfamiliar pang of anxiety clench in his chest. What was happening? What had happened? He saw a young intern, his face pale and sweating, nearly knock over a potted plant as he rushed past. "What is it?" Mr. Silas called out, his voice barely audible above the din. The intern didn't stop, didn't even glance his way. "Massive trauma," he yelled, his words garbled with panic. "Multiple casualties." Mr. Silas felt a chill run down his spine. Massive trauma. Multiple casualties. In the lobby. He had been standing right there, chatting with Brenda, just moments before. 7 minutes, perhaps less, since Dr. Albright had dismissed him. 7 minutes that separated him from what? He watched, paralyzed, as the revolving doors, which had been serenely turning just moments ago, were now jammed open, allowing a steady stream of medical personnel to flood outside. The sunlight, once welcoming, now seemed harsh and unforgiving, illuminating the growing sense of dread that settled over him. The scent of antiseptic, no longer diluted, filled his nostrils, a grim reminder of the fragility of life. Collapse in the lobby. The insistent blare of the emergency alarm sliced through Dr. Bright's concentration, scattering the meticulously arranged thoughts he had been marshalling for his presentation. He cursed under his breath, the carefully constructed argument for his innovative treatment protocol dissolving like sugar in hot coffee. He snatched his white coat from the back of his chair, already mentally composing the apology he would offer to the department head for the interruption. Time was currency, and he couldn't afford to waste it on whatever minor crisis had triggered the alert. He strode towards the lobby, his polished shoes clicking impatiently on the linoleum floor. The air crackled with a palpable anxiety, a stark contrast to the sterile calm he usually cultivated. Voices, hushed yet urgent, emanated from the waiting area. As he rounded the corner, the scene slammed into him with jarring force. A small crowd had gathered, their faces a mixture of concern and morbid curiosity. At the center of the huddle, on the cold, unforgiving tile of the lobby floor, lay a figure. Nurse Betty, her face etched with worry, knelt beside him, her capable hands working swiftly. The scent of antiseptic mingled with the acrid tang of fear. "What's going on?" Dr. Bright demanded, his voice sharp and authoritative. He pushed through the onlookers, his eyes scanning the scene with detached efficiency. A fall, perhaps? A seizure? Whatever it was disrupting his schedule. "He just collapsed," a woman whispered, her eyes wide. No warning at all. Dr. Bright's gaze finally landed on the person lying on the floor. His breath hitched. The blood drained from his face, leaving him feeling strangely lightheaded. It couldn't be. But it was. Mr. Silas Abernathy. His frail frame seemed even smaller and more vulnerable sprawled out on the hard surface. His face, usually a roadmap of wrinkles etched with gentle humor, was now pale and slack. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow and ragged. The oxygen tank hissed beside him, a stark reminder of the precious air he struggled to pull into his lungs. Nurse Betty glanced up, her eyes meeting Dr. Bright's. There was a flicker of something in her gaze, disappointment. Accusation? Before she turned back to Mr. Silas, her movements precise and focused. "Bright, get me the crash cart," she barked, her voice devoid of its usual warmth. "And call cardiology, stat!" The words hit him like a physical blow. Crash cart. Cardiology. This wasn't just a minor inconvenience. This was serious. His carefully constructed world, the one where he was a brilliant doctor on the fast track to success, threatened to crumble around him. The image of Mr. Silas, sitting alone and anxious in the exam room just minutes ago, flashed through his mind. Had he missed something? Dismissed something crucial? A cold wave of nausea washed over him. He stumbled back, his hand reaching out to steady himself against the wall. The sterile white of the lobby seemed to close in, suffocating him. The sound of the alarm, which he had so readily dismissed, now echoed in his ears, a deafening reminder of his own failing. Aortic dissection. Betty knelt beside Silas, a whirlwind of focused action. The man's complexion was ghostly, a film of perspiration glistening on his brow. Each breath was a shallow, ragged struggle, a wheezing symphony of distress. With swift precision, she exposed his chest, her trained fingers immediately seeking a pulse. A faint flutter, fragile and fleeting in his left wrist. Nothing on the right. "Code Blue, 302, she announced, her voice a sharp command that sliced through the ward's subdued atmosphere. "Crash cart, on the double. Vascular consult, immediate." Oblivious to the gathering urgency around her, Betty pressed her stethoscope to Silas's sternum. An abnormal sound, a ripping noise unlike anything she had encountered before. A cold dread washed over her. This transcended a simple syncope episode. This was devastating. Ethan Bright shouldered his way through the emerging throng, a peevish frown marring his features. "What's the hullabaloo?" I said. "He needs fluids and rest." Betty remained focused. "Doctor, this is beyond hydration. Disparate pulses, plummeting blood pressure, and a newly developed murmur. I suspect an aortic dissection." Ethan scoffed, disbelief etched on his face. "A dissection? In him? Absurd, Betty. They're exceedingly rare, and his too, infirm." Betty finally locked eyes with him, her gaze unwavering. "Uncommon doesn't equate to impossible, doctor. And fragility doesn't grant immunity to life-threatening events. We need an angiogram, now. Time is critical." Her voice left no room for debate. She returned to Silas, expertly inserting an 4. Ethan stood motionless, the blood draining from his face. The cocky assurance he exuded moments ago dissolved, replaced by stark, chilling clarity. He recalled brushing aside Silas's complaints, attributing them to age and anxiety. His mind flashed to the quicker, more intriguing cases demanding his attention. The shortcut he'd taken. He scrambled for his phone, his fingers clumsy as he dialed vascular surgery. The ringing amplified in the suddenly hushed room. He could hear Betty's calm, authoritative directive slicing through the rising pandemonium. The glaring contrast between her competence and his own oversight was a stinging rebuke. "Dr. Ramirez, vascular surgery's chief," answered, his tone brusque. Ethan stammered, struggling to articulate the situation, the potential diagnosis. Ramirez cut him off. "Get him to CT, Bright. Now. I'm en route." Ethan disconnected, his heart hammering against his ribcage. He glanced at Silas, pale and laboring for each gasp of air, connected to monitors that emitted a frantic, urgent rhythm. Then at Betty, her face a mask of concern, her movements a ballet of efficiency. He had been so consumed with impressing superiors, with career advancement, he had nearly killed a man. The enormity of that truth descended upon him, crushing. He turned to Betty, his voice a mere rasp. I should have listened." Betty didn't acknowledge him, her focus unwavering. She stated simply, "Just help me get him to CT, doctor. That's all that matters." Race against time. The fluorescent lights of the OR buzzed, a sterile symphony accompanying the frantic activity. Mr. Abernathy, pale and impossibly thin, was already prepped, a stark contrast to the vibrant blue drapes surrounding him. Dr. Bright scrubbed in, the rough sponge abrasive against his skin, a physical manifestation of the guilt gnawing at him. He tried to focus, to compartmentalize, to see Mr. Abernathy as just another case. Another obstacle to overcome on his path to, well, he wasn't quite sure what anymore. Just more. BP dropping, "Dr. Bright," Nurse Betty's voice cut through his thoughts. Her tone was neutral, professional, but he could feel the weight of her gaze. She was a seasoned veteran, her movements economical and precise as she adjusted the 4 drip. He'd seen that look before, the quiet disappointment of someone who'd seen bright young things like him come and go, their ambition burning bright but often illuminating little of substance. "Right," he muttered, pulling on his gloves. "Let's get this show on the road." Dr. Mallory, the attending surgeon, was already making the initial incision. The cauterizing tool hissed, a smell like burnt sugar filling the air. Bright, suction, she barked, her eyes never leaving the surgical field. He fumbled for the suction tube, his hands clumsy. Betty's hand brushed against his, guiding him. Steady now, doctor. Right there. The next few hours were a blur of instruments, sutures, and whispered instructions. Dr. Bright, initially overwhelmed, gradually found his footing. He anticipated Dr. Mallory's needs, holding retractors, clamping vessels, his movements becoming more fluid, more confident. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a scalpel. At one point, Mr. Abernathy's heart rate plummeted. A flat, unwavering tone filled the room from the heart monitor. Panic flared in Dr. Bright's chest. Dr. Mallory barked orders, her voice sharp and urgent. Epinephrine. Now. Betty was already there, syringe in hand, delivering the shot with practiced ease. Dr. Bright watched, heart pounding, as Dr. Mallory performed chest compressions, her face etched with concentration. Slowly, agonizingly, a faint blip appeared on the monitor. Then another. The rhythm strengthened, stabilized. A collective sigh swept through the room. Damn, Dr. Mallory muttered, wiping sweat from her brow. That was too close. Hours later, as the last stitch was placed and the surgical drapes removed, Dr. Bright felt a bone-deep exhaustion he'd never experienced before. He peeled off his gloves, the latex sticking to his sweaty hands. He looked at Mr. Abernathy, his face still pale but his chest rising and falling with a steady, if shallow, rhythm. Good work, Bright, Dr. Mallory said, her voice surprisingly gentle. He's not out of the woods yet, but you pulled your weight. He nodded, unable to speak. He looked at Betty, who was meticulously cleaning and organizing the instruments. Heard you the first time, Doctor, she said, her voice softer than before. Just needed a little guidance. He swallowed, the lump in his throat refusing to budge. He knew she was right. He had needed guidance. And maybe, just maybe, he needed more than just surgical skills to be a doctor. The weight of his earlier arrogance pressed down on him, heavier than any textbook he'd ever carried. A night of reflection. The sibilant hiss of the respirator cut through the stillness of the recovery room. Dr. Bright remained vigilantly at Mr. Abernathy's side, the measured expansion of the man's ribcage the only testament to his continued existence. Overhead, sterile lights glinted off the chrome of the four-pole, each falling droplet a samba beat in time's relentless march. He'd nearly lost him. A mere 7 minutes fueled by hubris, by a careless assessment that could have extinguished a life. Since the operation's close, he'd been a fixture here, a leaden anxiety settling with each shallow gasp the patient took. The procedure itself had been flawless, his movements a symphony of practiced skill. The error lay in the initial judgment, the hasty dismissal that now clawed at his conscience. Nurse Betty materialized, her features etched with empathetic fatigue. She rested a comforting hand on his arm. He's stable, Ethan. Go get some rest. Shame coiled too tightly to allow him respite. I almost overlooked it, Betty. Nearly sent him home to die. Betty sighed, the sound lost in the room's mechanical susurrus. We all stumble, Doctor. The key is learning from it. She drew up a chair with a quiet scrape. I recall my early days, a young girl burning with fever, skin like parchment. I diagnosed flu, sent her home. Meningitis. She barely survived. Her mother never forgot, and neither did I. Unspoken remorse hung heavy in the air. Ethan avoided her gaze, his focus drawn to the frail hand lying on the pristine linens. Medicine is more than rote memorization, Ethan, Betty continued, her tone gentle yet firm. It's about keen listening. To the patient, to your intuition, to the accumulated wisdom of those who've walked this path before. He finally met her gaze, seeing within it the vast ocean of experience that humbled him. I was too preoccupied with proving myself, with chasing the next challenge, that I failed to truly see him. Arrogance is a treacherous companion, Doctor. Especially in our line of work. It can obscure the very truth that stares back at you. A fleeting, reassuring smile touched her lips. But you caught it. In the end. That's paramount. He lives because you are a skilled surgeon. Now, strive to become a truly good doctor, too. Her words lingered, both a challenge and a form of solace. Ethan watched Abernathy's chest rise and fall, the steady cadence a palpable reminder of redemption. He pondered his ambition, his eagerness to ascend, to achieve recognition. But at what potential cost? He rose, the oppressive weight on his shoulders perceptibly lighter. Thank you, Betty. Sleep would elude him tonight. He'd remain here, observing, absorbing. He would pore over Abernathy's chart again, searching for any nuance he'd previously missed. He would meticulously dissect his own actions, scrutinize his thought processes, until he fully comprehended where he had faltered. And he would commit to never repeating the mistake. The rhythmic whoosh of the ventilator no longer felt like a condemnation, but a constant pulse reminding him of the fragility of life and the weighty responsibility he bore. Forgiveness and growth. The first sensation to register was the dry rasp of the oxygen tube teasing his parched throat. Then came the headache, a leaden pressure behind his eyes, a testament to his struggle back from oblivion. He blinked against the glare of the overhead lights, the sterile room coalescing slowly around him. A wavering shape resolved itself into Dr. Bright. The young physician seemed diminished. The crisp, assured bearing Silas remembered had vanished, supplanted by a posture of utter fatigue. Mr. Abernathy, Bright murmured, his voice a hushed, almost apologetic tone, "You're awake." A feeble nod was all Silas could manage. His chest still constricted, a phantom echo of the terror on his kitchen floor. He scrutinized Bright's features, searching for a trace of the dismissive pride he recalled. Instead, he detected remorse. Bright fidgeted, raking a hand through already unruly hair. "Mr. Abernathy, I owe you a sincere apology. My conduct, it was indefensible. I failed to listen. I wasn't paying attention. I was preoccupied with other matters, to the point of complete disregard for you, for your concerns. I was wrong. And I am deeply sorry." The words, simple as they were, resonated with unexpected weight. Silas saw genuine regret etched on the young doctor's face, a palpable aura of contrition. He'd lived long enough to discern genuine remorse. "It's all right, son," Silas croaked, his voice still a mere thread. "We all stumble. The measure of a person is how they recover." He paused, summoning his strength. "This existence, it's precious. And medicine, it's a calling, a sacred trust. People arrive at your door in their hour of need. They depend on your insight, your empathy, your skill. Don't let ambition obscure that, blind you to the individual before you." Bright's head dipped lower, his shoulders slumping further. "I understand, Mr. Abernathy. I truly do. I became consumed by career advancement, by the pursuit of prestige, and I lost sight of my initial purpose." He raised his gaze, meeting Silas's. A fragile vulnerability shone there, an authentic honesty previously absent. "I give you my word, this will never be repeated. I will strive to be a better doctor. I will listen intently. I will care deeply." Silas offered a faint, weary smile. "That's all I ask, son. That's all anyone asks." He closed his eyes, the soft hiss of oxygen a constant companion. The pressure on his chest seemed to lessen, not just physically, but in his spirit. He'd been granted a reprieve, and perhaps, in a strange twist of fate, so had Dr. Bright. Bright lingered by the bedside for an extended moment, the quiet broken only by the steady pulse of the heart monitor. He experienced a profound inner shift, a realignment of his values. The fierce drive that had consumed him felt suddenly empty, insignificant compared to the fundamental act of truly seeing another human being. He understood the journey ahead would be arduous, that regaining trust would demand persistent effort. Yet, he resolved to earn it, to demonstrate to Mr. Abernathy, and to himself, that he could embody the physician he had always imagined, not only competent, but compassionate as well. He made a silent promise to carry Mr. Abernathy's counsel close, a perpetual reminder of the true essence of his profession.